Professor P.J. Philip sir on the occasion of the third session of the online faculty development program. Professor P.J. Philip sir was professor with the 38 years of experience in the teaching, research and academic administration at NIT Kurukshetra. Sir also had been the head of the Department of the Humanities and Social Sciences for 2 years, and sir also head of the Department of the Business Administration for 5 years. Sir also had been the Dean Student Welfare for 2 years in the NIT Kurukshetra. After the superannuation, sir had been re-employed in the institute as the coordinator for the skill development. Apart from the teaching, sir also supervised research for the PhD, has undertaken projects and has published number of the research papers. Sir also organized and attended many national, international conferences, seminars, and workshops. Professor P.J. Phillips sir are now associated with the Civil Society Organization, Institute for the Sustainable Development and Research, ISDR Mumbai, which enjoy a collaborative status with a number of the UN agencies. Sir represent the ISDR of various international forms. So, sir, I request Professor P.J. Phillips sir to share your experience on the stress management. Welcome, sir.
Dr. Philip, sir. Philip, sir.
Yeah. I'm just coming on.
Please share your PPT.
Okay. All right.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, all. So, good afternoon to the distinguished faculty and to all the dear participants. Extremely delighted to be part of this FDP as a resource person. Having been a teacher for nearly 40 years, it's always a pleasure to have an opportunity to interact with younger fellow teachers and share my experiences and understanding to the young faculty. I'm aware that this is a highly technical FDP on a highly technical topic, that is I think it's one construction project management. Yes, project management and construction technology. But the task assigned to me is to discuss a non-technical topic. Normally, you would expect almost all the resource persons from the technical side, but here I am, a non-technical person, to discuss with you a topic that is of current significance, and that is stress management. I have a PPT which I would share with you as we discuss this along. I hope the PPT is visible now and clear. All right.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I'm supposed to be discussing stress management. I understand that the sponsoring authority, that is the All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE, has mandated that there be discussions on stress management in almost all the FDPs now being conducted. The reason is obvious, because we are living in extremely difficult times. And under this extreme difficulty, every one of us, we are faced with a lot of stress. And therefore, it's extremely important that we understand stress and also understand how we can manage stress in these difficult times. So quite obviously, the AICTE wanted that this topic be discussed, and I hope in the next couple of hours that we are together, we will be able to have a proper understanding of stress and how to manage stress, and particularly in the teaching profession. To the question, why stress management now? Quite obviously, it's because of the COVID pandemic. We all know that for more than a year, we've been having this pandemic, and pandemic across the world, no rich and poor, no developed or underdeveloped countries. All the countries and all the people are affected. And therefore, everybody across the world, every people, every government is under tremendous stress as to how to tackle this pandemic. And therefore, stress is a reality not just for us here in India, it is a reality across the globe. And this is the reason why it is extremely important for us to understand stress and stress management. When we look at the COVID pandemic, the number of deaths are already close to 50 lakhs, according to what we know. Of course, you can argue about those numbers because those numbers are not definite. In certain countries, even India is accused of that. Number of deaths are underreported. So this figure need not be true, but the fact remains that this is an extremely big number, which underlines to what extent COVID has affected our lives. Our lives have been drastically changed. I'm sure in future we would all be looking at life before COVID and life after COVID. So much of change has happened in our lives. Loss of livelihood, unemployment is very high. People have lost their jobs. As a result, people have lost their livelihood. How to live a life itself has become a problem. Loss of near and dear ones, again, another major problem this pandemic has posed for us. A large number of our relatives, our family members, our friends have lost their lives. And here again, we started by saying it affects only the extremely aged people. And now it has come down to young people. And we are now hearing it would also affect the children in the near future. There is a general feeling of helplessness. We don't know what to do, how to tackle this problem, and what would be our future. So all this put together, there is tremendous stress in the lives of everyone during the pandemic. Now, when you look at the last 1 year, how can we describe this last 1 year? Can we say the worst of times? This is an expression that has been taken from a very famous English writer, a novelist whom I'm sure most of you would know. This is Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens starts one of his very famous novels, A Tale of Two Cities. He starts this with the word, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So I'm sure in future, when historians, when we look back at the last 1 year, 1.5 years, we most likely would use this expression of Charles Dickens and say it was the worst of times. So that is one way of describing the last 1.5 years that we have been under the pandemic. Another famous expression in this connection is annus horribilis. Annus horribilis means horrible year, annus year. This famous lady, who was the Queen of England a few years back, described one of the years as a horrible year. But now again in future, I'm sure most of us would look back at this period, 2021, and say it was an annus horribilis. It was a horrible year. So a lot of people who are familiar with English literature and familiar with the British English Queen here, they have borrowed these two expressions to describe the period of the pandemic as a worst of times and a horrible year. I just borrowed this from the novel of Charles Dickens and a speech by Queen Elizabeth a few years back. As a result of this is what each one of us is facing: stress from all sides, right? If you want to, if you look at this image, you will find how we are surrounded by stress, right? Because of all that is happening due to COVID pandemic. Therefore, now let us take up this question as to what is stress. We all understand what is stress, but let us go into depth and see whether we can analyze stress. In simple terms, I've just taken a few expressions that can explain stress. Stress is the tension or pressure we feel in our bodies as we respond to everyday events that make us feel uncomfortable. Everyday events, there are many things that happen that would make us uncomfortable because life is a challenge. And now it is more of a challenge because of what is happening during the pandemic. So, tension or pressure that we feel because of the events on a day-to-day basis is what we call stress. That is one expression. One thing that we need to understand, although I highlighted the fact that we've been asked to discuss stress and stress management because of the pandemic, the fact remains that stress is a natural part of living. Even without the pandemic, stress is always part of life. So that is why I mentioned here, stress is a natural part of living. Another way of looking at stress, we have problems when we have too much stress, quite obviously, we feel tense. So when we have too much stress, quite obviously, we become very tense. So we say we are under stress. When we have problems, we become tense and we say we are under stress. When we have too little stress, that is why I said that stress is very much a part of life, and to some extent, stress is a necessary part of life. So when we have too little stress, we feel unmotivated and bored. Nothing is happening. It's only when we have bit of stress, bit of problems, that we take them as challenge and we get very active to find answers to those problems, right? Whereas here we feel that if there is no stress in life, we feel unmotivated until life becomes very boring, right? So that is another part of stress. Let's continue with that. We are raising the question, what is stress? Stress is the feeling of being under too much mental and emotional pressure, right? So it is both mental and emotional. So being under emotional and mental pressure is what we call stress. Pressure turns into stress when one feels unable to cope. When we are faced with a
बैटरी
problem,
खत्म हो रही है मोबाइल की.
when we are faced with a problem, we are able to solve the problem. then it's all right, there is no stress. But when we are faced with a problem, we are not able to solve it, then we are not able to cope with it, then it becomes a stress. So pressure, problem that we face in life on a day-to-day does not become a stress unless we are unable to cope with the pressure, cope with the problem. It's when we are unable to cope with the pressure that that pressure becomes stress. Stress is the physiological and psychological response to circumstances, right? When we are faced with surroundings in life, we are physically also impacted, psychologically also impacted. And that is why it is stress is the physiological and psychological response to circumstances. What is a stressor? I want all of you to understand this expression, stressor. So stress, then stressor. Stressor is a situation or a happening or occurrence or factor which causes stress. So stressor is one which causes stress. So these are a few statements which I felt would help us understand stress. So one of the things that we need to understand from this is stress is very much a part of our lives. Number two, we are faced with problems, challenges on a day-to-day basis. Most of those challenges, problems we solve ourselves. And when we solve ourselves, then there is no issue. But if we are finding it difficult to solve the problem, then that becomes stress. Circumstances or whatever happens around us, factors that create stress is called stressor. So the last point there, stressor is a situation, occurrence, or factor causing stress. Now, after having understood what is stress, let us understand what are the types of stress that we have. Very interestingly, we have to begin with two types of stress. Good stress and bad stress, or positive stress and negative stress. Let us try and understand that. Eustress is called the good stress, which is very beneficial for us in life, almost necessary for us in life. A bit of stress is very necessary, and we'll go forward and understand why that kind of good stress, or what is called eustress, is necessary in life. Now, eu is a Greek prefix which means good. So eustress simply means good stress, stress beneficial for us. Eustress is a positive stress because this stress helps us to be positive, drives us into positive action. So eustress is something positive. Eustress mobilizes physical and psychological capabilities. When we are under eustress, then our physical capabilities are sharpened, our psychological capabilities are also sharpened, and therefore we can respond to situations much better, right? So that is why when we have good stress, it mobilizes our physical and psychological capabilities for us to act positively. It increases alertness. We become very alert when we are under eustress, that is good stress. We become motivated and energized, right? So good stress, that is. You know, for example, I've just mentioned here, when we are preparing for an examination, we are motivated and energized to do well. So that would help us do well. Otherwise, if we are lethargic, lazy, then we are not able to perform well in an examination. So a bit of stress is very necessary and very useful when we prepare for examination. Same thing goes for preparing for a speech or preparing for a competition. For example, now the Olympic Games is going on. Large number of our athletes, a large number of our sportsmen and women have prepared for this, driven by the stress that situation creates, that we have to go to the world stage, a global competition. So they were driven by that. So they're physically and psychologically driven so that their capabilities are at their peak now. Now they have to deliver. So preparation for an examination or preparation for a speech or preparation for competition, they all motivate and energize us. Therefore, they are good stress. So we call it eustress. And ultimately, because it energizes us, motivates us, it mobilizes our physical and psychological capabilities, it is a positive stress and it improves our performance. As example, as we said, when we know that we have an examination tomorrow, we come under this positive stress, we work hard, and we are willing to perform positively and well, right? So one type of stress which is useful for us is called eustress or good stress. But the other stress, which is negative, is what we call the distress. Now, as an example, I put the image of one of the world's most famous personalities. He is a sportsman, Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world. He's a 100 meters champion. And before he starts the race, he is there at the starting point. And this is a moment of stress for him. But it is a moment of good, positive stress. And when he gets into this kind of stress, that helps him act better and faster, perform better. And that is why we mentioned towards the end of our last slide that good eustress energizes us and helps us perform well. And Usain Bolt is a good example. In fact, all the athletes for that matter who are at the starting point of a race, they are under stress, under tremendous stress, but they channelize that stress into performance and they perform well. And that is what is required in all important competitions. Now we come to the second type of stress, which is the negative stress, which is called distress. So eustress and distress, this is the negative stress. This is what we should guard against. This is what we should get rid of because it adversely affects our performance. This type of stress we refer to mostly when we talk about stress. When we say we are under stress, what we actually mean is we are in distress. We don't mean, when we say we are under stress, we don't mean we are under eustress or good stress. So generally when we use this expression stress, we mean it for distress because this is what we are scared of most of the time. Stress beyond coping capabilities, as we already discussed in the previous slide, when we are faced with a problem and we are not able to solve that problem or handle that situation, then it becomes a negative stress. So negative stress or distress starts beyond our coping capabilities. It feels very heavy on us and it's very unpleasant. Feels heavy and unpleasant, when we are under distress, the heart is heavy, we feel inactive, right? And we feel very heavy. And that is what this is. And quite obviously, it decreases performance. In case of good stress, eustress, it enhances or improves our performance. Whereas in case of distress, negative stress, it decreases our performance, right? So two types of stress. This is something that we need to keep in mind. It's always good to drive ourselves into positive stress because it improves our performance. So I want you to keep these two things in mind, good stress and negative stress. When we are faced with the distress, it can lead to mental and physical problems also. If you delay attending or curing this stress or distress, it can adversely affect our mental and physical status. Right, and that's exactly what we have as a last point in this slide there. It can lead to mental and physical problems. There could be a result, a fallout of this. Now, an example of distress is what we have here. I don't know how many of you are interested in sports and games. A lot of examples I would take relate to sports and games because I'm a sports enthusiast as well. Here, about a couple of weeks back, we had the European Football Championship. And in the finals, we had England playing against Italy. And after the full time and after extra time, the score remained same, right? And therefore, when it is a draw at the end of full time and extra time, then the winner is decided by penalty shootout. 5 players from each side are given chance. Now, this is the picture of one of England's more famous players, Rashford, extremely talented player. But when he came to take the penalty, he couldn't convert that penalty. The goalkeeper, as you can see here, blocked the penalty shot. And as a result, the image on the right side of your screen, we find a man in distress. So as a result of this, 2 of his other players also missed the penalty. So 3 out of 5 from England's side missed the penalty, as a result of which England lost the match to Italy. Now, the positive stress that comes as you go to take the penalty is a positive stress. Now, these are people who are extremely talented and skilled players. The only difference at this point is the level of stress that they face. They are alone standing in front of the goal, and the match would be decided by their performance. As I said, Rashford is an extremely talented player and has been doing very well for his country and for his football club. But at this moment, stress probably overcame his performance. As a result, he could not convert the penalty, and therefore England lost the match. So that is why we saw when good performance can activate a player performance, a negative stress actually puts extra pressure on the player, and this is the situation that we have there, right? Now, therefore, the point that I was trying to make is we have 2 types of stress. One good stress, which we call eustress, and one negative stress, which we call distress. And this is the result of that. Now we come to another expression in relation to stress, and that is stressors. What are stressors? Stressors are situations that are stress-provoking. So something that is responsible for stress is called a stressor. Something that provokes stress is called a stressor. So stressors. Now let us see what are some of the common stressors or things that create stress in our lives. Number one, as you can see, if you have a health problem, that becomes a stressor. We suddenly become under tremendous tension. You know, particularly these days when we have the pandemic and COVID, whenever we fall ill, we have a health problem, we are always scared whether it is anything to do with COVID. So it brings us under tremendous stress. So your health problems are a stressor, something that creates stress. So if you want to be free of this stress, it's extremely important that you. Hello. Yeah. Thank you. Would you please switch off? Yeah. Thank you. So health problems is a stressor. Financial problems. Suppose we are faced with financial problems, that becomes a stressor. I repeat what I said earlier. A stressor is a situation or anything. Yeah, it is anything that creates stress. Somebody's got the microphone.
Hello?
Yeah, can I continue, Professor Vikas?
Yes, sir, please.
All right, somebody has, I think, the microphone on, it's creating disturbance, I thought. I'll continue, not a problem. All right, so health problems are stressors, financial problems are stressors, right? And relationship problems. We are human beings, and therefore relationships are extremely important for us. So if we are faced with a relationship problem, that becomes a stressor that can create stress in our lives. Work-related problems. Most of us are working in one situation or the other, right? We have a job or we are running a business. And if we are faced with any problem relating to our work, that can become a cause for stress. So we would call it a stressor. Changes in life. When we are satisfied with our life and life continues, suddenly if there is a change in life for whatever reasons, then this becomes a stressor. Even if we have to have a transfer from one place to the other, till we go to the new place and settle down, we are under stress. So changes in life would definitely be stressor. Loss of loved ones, we don't need to talk about that at all. If any of our close, near and dear ones lose their lives, we come under tremendous stress. So loss of loved ones is a stressor. And all kinds of daily hassles that we face. If we are late to work, that can become a stressor. If we are caught in the traffic, that can become a stressor. If we have some conflict in the family at home, that can become a stressor. So we are faced with stresses in our life on a day-to-day basis. So it's very natural for us to have stress. The only thing that we should guard against is that this stress should not go beyond a certain stage where it becomes distress. Fortunately, we are able to handle most of the stress, and therefore they don't become distress. But if we ignore them, we allow them to grow and become distress, then it can have very adverse impact on our physical and mental abilities. So it's extremely important that we identify the stresses and try and eliminate these stresses as we go along. So this is another expression I wanted all of you to take a note of. A stressor is something that causes stress. And in our day-to-day life, there are a number of stressors, but fortunately, we deal with all those stresses. Now let's look at, first we looked at the types of stresses. Now we are looking at the types of stressors, cash flow. Internal stresses, that is from within, what causes stress on us. Internal stresses, distressing thoughts. If we have some disturbing thoughts in our mind, that can be a cause for stress. So internally, there is this disturbing thought, which becomes a cause for stress. It keeps disturbing us, and then gradually it grows and becomes a stress. Unpleasant memories. If we had bad memories about something, that becomes a cause of stress. So it's extremely important that we don't go back to unpleasant memories. We identify positive memories, happy memories, and try and recollect them. But humans almost always would go to unpleasant memories, and that gradually creates stress for us. If we are emotionally sad or if we are extremely angry, both can create stress for us. We know that on a day-to-day basis. Emotionally, sadness or anger can create stress. Sensations like pain or discomfort that we feel inside, mental and physical pain, it can create stress. For example, all of a sudden, suppose you develop some pain inside the body. You become stressful because you don't know what is causing that pain. You suddenly worry whether it is anything serious. Should I meet a doctor? Those thoughts come to our mind and they become a cause for stress, right? So that is why we said sensations like pain or any discomfort that we feel inside. These are all internal stresses within the body. But we also at the same time have external stresses. Outside the body, in our environment, in our surroundings, we have stresses that cause stress. And all of us know that. Situations with negative impact. Any situation that is there that would negatively impact us, quite obviously can create stress. So this is external to our body, but it can create stress if it is got a negative impact. Another person's negative behavior can create stress, right? Any negative behavior by another person can create stress. It's outside, we can ignore it, but very often we don't ignore it, we take on that person, so that creates stress. Any physical harm caused by an external agency, anything external, can create stress. And work pressure, which is an outside stressor. When we are faced with pressure at the place of work, then this becomes an important stressor. So what we've done here is types of stress we've classified into two: internal stressors, which are within the originating from within the body, and external stressors, which are due to circumstances outside the body. So we call them internal stressors and external stressors. And stressors are those things that cause stress. Now let us look at what are some of the stressors we faced during the pandemic. What are the different things that cause stress for us during the last 1 year, 1.5 years during the pandemic? It can be any number. I've just picked up a few common ones. Isolation, lockdown, quarantine. All of us understand this. This was something new to us, and suddenly this became a matter of great stress for each one of us. Initially, it was a matter of great stress, but gradually we became used to it. And today we are at a time when we can manage this. But still, any kind of isolation due to lockdown and quarantine, it is a matter of great stress, and it was at its peak during the pandemic. Unemployment is another thing that has created a lot of stress as a result of pandemic. All of us know large number of people, particularly unskilled labor, they lost their jobs. All of you remember the people walking back home, hundreds and even thousands of miles. After having lost their jobs without any money, they felt they could not survive in big cities. So they decided to go back to their villages, go back home. Now, this obviously creates great stress, right? So unemployment creates great stress. Loss of business, same thing, creates great stress. Loss of dear ones, we already saw. Pandemic saw large number of deaths. And if we have lost somebody to the pandemic, quite obviously, this is there. Financial stress, if you lose your job, if your business is not doing well, if you are all locked up and quarantined at home, how would you make money? There is nothing for livelihood. So financial stress was an important stressor during the pandemic. Health threat. This was the most important because all the time we were taking all kinds of precautions to avoid any kind of threat due to health. Right? We wanted to keep this virus at a distance. Therefore, all of us came under great stress. And as a result, something positive is that we changed our eating habits, our lifestyle, so that we could avoid the health threat. So this is another one. Household chores. Now, a lot of people never did anything at home. Either their wives or other people did it, or their maids and servants did it. But without maids and servants, you had a situation where people in the house had to manage their household chores. And that became a matter of stress for many people. For many people, that became good stress because they were forced to work, and in the process, they learned new things. They understood the work at home. But for a lot of people, it was a cause of stress. So I just identified some of the stressors, some of the things that cause stress during the pandemic, right? I said this is not an exhaustive list. There could be so many that I'm sure you can identify and add to this list. Let us see what is the physiology of stress. How does stress happen within the body? What is the physiology? What is happening within the body for stress to happen? Right? So I call it the physiology of stress, the physical chain reaction that happens within the body that creates stress. How is stress created within the body? When a person encounters a stressor, that is something that causes stress, a chain reaction is set in motion by the brain. That is, when the person comes across a situation that is that we can call a stressor that can cause stress, then a message goes to the brain, and a brain initiates a chain reaction. The first step the brain does is the brain activates the nervous system. The nervous system, as all of us know, originates in the brain and runs throughout the body. So the sympathetic nervous system is activated by the brain when it comes or encounters a stressor. And when the nervous system is activated, stress hormones or chemicals like adrenaline, cortisol are pumped into the bloodstream. Now, this is a body's reaction to stress. We call this a fight or flight. Either it fights that external cause, or it avoids it, it runs away from it. And that is a decision the body takes. So when chemicals are released in the bloodstream, that would help the body to counter the stressor, right? So this is what happens. And then this results in the stress response like quickening of the heartbeat and breath, feeling of restless energy, and increased mental alertness. The moment this happens, adrenaline and cortisol are released into our blood. That would help us increase the heartbeat, which makes the body more active, and increase our breathing, which again makes the body more active. And energy is released because of this. And suddenly we become very mentally very alert and ready to meet the stressor or overcome the stressor. This is how the physical chain reaction happens that causes stress. And that is why I call it physiology of stress. The stressor is encountered by the person. The message goes to the brain passes it on to the nervous system. The nervous system gets chemicals and hormones released in the bloodstream, which helps the body prepare itself to overcome the stress. Now, this is the image of a stress performance curve. If we become inactive, as you can see in the green shaded part, slowly from inaction, we come to a lazy, laid back situation, which leads to fatigue, which is the optimum stress. So from little stress, we gradually go on to optimum stress if we don't attend to the stress. So after stress is created, if we don't take care of the stress, it would slowly increase and then it reaches an optimum level of stress. And then we go into a state of exhaustion, anxiety and panic and anger, and finally leading to depression and breakdown, and which causes the burnout. So what this image tells us is, whenever we encounter a stressor, whenever we come under stress, it's extremely important that we handle the stress. We come up with ways of overcoming the stress so that it does not in any way reach the extreme exhaustion level or a breakdown level. So we need to identify this right at the little stress inactive state itself and then take care of it before we reach a fatigue state. So this clearly tells us that stress should be handled and overcome at a very early stage when we identify it. Now, another expression I want all of you to remember from this discussion is stress busters. That is something that bursts stress, that removes stress. Now, if we want to handle stress or overcome stress, then we need to identify stress busters which would help us overcome stress. So first we came out with the expression stress. Then we talked about good or eustress and bad or negative stress, which is a distress. And we used the expression stressor, something that causes stress. And now we come to another expression, stress buster, something that helps us get rid of stress, overcome stress, or handle stress. Let us look at some of the common stress busters. First and foremost, that what we need to understand is we need to focus on those things in life that we can control. You know, when we look at life, we understand that there are certain things that we can control and certain things we cannot control, which are not in our control. Very often what happens is that we lose our sleep, we come under stress, thinking of those things which we cannot control. So if those things which we cannot control, then it's better that we look at it differently. So focus on things that we can control, not on things that we cannot control, right? That is number one. Number two, particularly during the pandemic, there was a lot of negative news. Large number of people affected by the virus, large number of people suffering from the disease, large number of people lose their life. They are distressing news. It's good to stay away from distressing news because that puts us under stress and sometimes even under depression. So another stress buster is to stay away from distressing, bad, negative news. A third stress buster is to remain active and busy. It's only when we sit quiet that we think about negative things. We think about distressing things, which actually becomes a stress. If we remain active and busy, chances are that we will not think of those negative things. So one good stress buster is to remain active and remain busy. And fourth suggestion for stress buster, discover joy in the uncommon. A lot of people who were locked up at home suddenly discovered that there are many things that they've missed in life. And now that they had the time and they were not disturbed at all, they discovered the joy in the uncommon. I remember reading about a celebrity who said, I had not seen a sunset for many, many years. Even though his flat was close to the sea, because he never returned in the evening. Most of the time he came back in the night. He said, the first time I discovered the beauty of the sunset was during the lockdown. And this is what we say, discover joy in the uncommon. Right? When he looked at the sunset, and after that he said, every day he used to be at his balcony enjoying the beauty of the sunset. So this is a wonderful way of overcoming stress. That he said that he used to look forward to this. So he called it a stress buster. Another one is to engage in physical activities. Again, if we become, we had this in an earlier slide where we said that it's extremely important that we remain active. Otherwise, we can become distressed and we can become bored with nothing to do. So physical activities are very important. Physical activities are important for our physique or the body. They're equally important for our mind also. For both physical and mental health, it's extremely important that we engage in physical activities. Of course, when we are in a lockdown situation or when we are in a quarantine situation, we have to limit the physical activities. But whatever activity is possible within the confines of our home, within our houses, we should be able to do that, right? Meditation and yoga have been strongly recommended as two activities that you can easily do within the four walls of your homes. And a lot of people have discovered the joy of meditation and yoga, and they've now continued with this. So a clear stress buster is meditation and yoga. If you can get into the habit of regularly meditating and doing some yoga, that is going to help you not only physically, it is very strongly mentioned that it also helps you mentally. So this is another good stress buster. Maintain a work-life balance. Now, what is happening is that a large number of people who were working from home suddenly found that they are overworking or there's more work to do. As a result, they could not maintain that balance. This is extremely important that you should decide, draw a line as to how much of time I would spend on my work. Beyond that, it is your personal time and it is your family time. So there needs to be a balance between work and life. and this is extremely important. Many people have discovered this during the pandemic, that though we are sitting at home in front of the computer and working from home, unless we strictly follow certain routine or timing, it can adversely impact us and ultimately it could lead to stress, right? Therefore, maintain a balance between your work and your personal and family life. Very, very important, be of help to others. There is nothing more joyful or nothing that can give you more happiness than of being help to others. A lot of people have discovered this during the pandemic. Many celebrities, many other people have come forward to prepare and serve food for the underprivileged. They come forward to help people under distress due to health problems. And the joy that you derive out of helping others is extremely important, and it gives you happiness, and therefore it is a stress buster. You come across somebody who is under financial strain. Can you help that person in some way or the other? A person without job, can you help him in some way or the other? So helping others is a wonderful stress buster because it gives you a lot of happiness and joy. And that we had a lot of opportunities during COVID to do that. I just identified some of these things which we could call stress busters, something that would help us burst or overcome stress. And again, this is a small list, you can add to this list. So stress buster is a good expression. Now we come to the stress management. I'm not going too much into details. What do you understand? Stress we've understood. The other part of our topic is management. What is management? Management simply means doing something. In very simple terms, I can give you an extremely technical definition of management. But for a layman, for a common man, what is management? Management is doing anything or something effectively, efficiently, and systematically. Anything that is done effectively, efficiently, and systematically, we could say it has been managed well. Effectively would mean whatever objectives we've set for an activity, it has been fulfilled. Efficiently means in fulfilling that objective, we've made optimum use of all the resources at our command. Now, resources are not to be lavishly used. It should be utilized properly. For example, there is a lot of difference between something being done with 10 rupees and something being done with 50 rupees. So if something that is done in 50 rupees can be done in 10 rupees, then we would say it has been efficiently done. The financial resource, money resource, has been properly utilized. Something that can be done by 10 people, if you do it with 20 people, then we don't say it has been managed well. It has been mismanaged. So the human resource has not been efficiently utilized. So effectively doing something means achieving the objective. Efficiently doing something means all the resources at our command, they are utilized properly. And systematically doing would mean if something is to be successful, you cannot do it in the haywire manner. It has to be done systematically. Systematically would mean step by step, stage by stage. It's only when something is done systematically, step by step, that you can achieve good results. So you can check this out with any activity. Any activity that is effectively done, efficiently done, and systematically done, we would call it has been managed well. Now, when we say stress management, what we mean is stress is natural to human life, but can we manage stress in such a way that whatever we wanted to achieve has been effectively achieved. Whatever we want to achieve was efficiently achieved, optimum utilization of the resource, and systematically done. I want that all of you should do stress management systematically. That is step by step. For example, we say meditation and yoga are very good. It should be introduced into our routine. And then when this is systematically done, we should decide every day I would spend 1 hour on meditation and 1 hour on yoga, or half an hour on meditation, half an hour on yoga. But it is done systematically. It is done regularly, step by step. I'll do 5 exercises today, the next 5 tomorrow. I will spend 2 minutes on meditation today, and tomorrow 3 minutes and 4 minutes, step by step. We are improving that, so we call it systematic. So stress management is something that we talk about, how managing to overcome stress. Stress management is utilizing stress for one's benefit. So when we say stress is being managed, that means we are managing good stress to energize ourselves, and we are eliminating bad stress or distress, as we call it, right? Stress management. And employing stress busters to control stress. We identified a number of stress busters. And if we do it systematically, we know when this happens, I need to do this. This is how I can overcome stress. When this happens, this is how I can overcome stress. So when we do it systematically, we can use certain stress busters to overcome or control stress, right? Now, this is what we call stress management, managing stress in such a way that we utilize the good stress for better performance, and we discard or overcome bad stress or distress so that it does not impact us negatively. That is what we call stress management. Now, what is the process of stress management? Process means what are the steps involved? Very hurriedly, I'll run through this. Realizing that stress is natural to you. The first thing you should understand, and we did that right in the beginning itself, in the first slide itself, that we need to understand stress is very much a part of our life. What we need to know is some stress is good for us, so utilize them. But some stress bad for us, so eliminate them as soon as possible before they become serious and distress, and then we get into depression and breakdown. So realizing that stress is natural to human life, that is the first thing. We don't have to be scared of stress. We should be aware of stress, right? That is what we say. Understanding stress and distress, we already did that. We should realize that we have good stress and we have bad stress, positive stress and negative stress. Let us utilize positive stress and let us overcome or discard negative stress, right? So understanding stress and distress. Developing the skill to manage stress. We saw that, how it's important for us to overcome stress, and it is a skill that can be developed. Skill would mean an ability that would be very effective. And skill is something you can develop. So you don't have to say, I'm this way by nature. I know that these are the things to be done to overcome stress. And whenever I'm faced with stress, I'll deal with stress at an early stage itself so that it does not become a distress, right? So if you develop that skill of dealing with stress at an early stage or utilizing good positive stress, then we could call it stress management. Making lifestyle alterations to manage stress. This is an important part of stress management. We all have a particular lifestyle, and we need to study our lifestyle and realize what is good for us and what is not good for us. and accordingly make changes in our lifestyle. And when we make changes in our lifestyle, it would improve us mentally and physically both. And if we are better mentally and better physically, the chances of stress overcoming us is less. We'll be able to deal with stress in a much better way. So it's extremely important to make lifestyle changes to manage stress. Attending to the problem of stress before it becomes acute, we already spoke about that. At an early stage, identify stress, and before it gets worse, before it becomes distress, before it becomes depression, handle and overcome the stress. Whatever is required to overcome the stress, deal with it so that it is taken care of at an early stage. Constantly catering to both the physical and mental health. A common mistake that we all make is we do a lot of things to improve our physical health because that is the visible part of our health. So we have good food, we sometimes do good exercise, etc., right? And thinking that physically fit. But what we need to know is man is both physical and mental. And stress is more to do with mental. So it's important on a regular basis, just as you take care of your physical health, you need to take care of your mental health as well. So constantly you should take care of that, physical and mental health. Extremely, extremely important. Now, I just identified two things which, if you do step by step, we could say that we have succeeded in managing stress. So understanding stress, understanding how to overcome stress, and then implementing it is what is called stress management, right? These are the things that you should keep in mind. I just have some images here which gives us a representation, an image representation of how to manage stress. As it is very clear, stress relief strategies would include good exercise, body relaxation, breathing techniques, and meditation, and all those things can help. Jogging, physical exercise, etc., meditation that can help relax your body. So that could be a strategy. Physical exercises, yoga and workout routine should become a part of our daily life. This is extremely important. So another part of the strategy to overcome stress is doing physical exercise. Meditation we already talked about. Some time should be devoted to meditation that would strengthen your mind. Extremely important for your mental health. And for any kind of counseling, you can do counseling, you can talk to others, you can hear others talk to you. So if you keep talking, talk therapy is what we call. When you talk to others, that helps them and it helps you as well. And when you listen to others, again, you are. So these are all some of the commonly used strategies for managing stress. Now, I come to another part of our discussion. I call it the work stress, because most of us are working in a work situation, and I would assume that most of you are teachers. So this is an area I wanted to focus on to say that your workplace is an area which is a great stressor, which causes a lot of stress. So some points I've raised here of work stress, the causes of work stress. I deliberately chose this area because realizing that most of you must be working. Let us look at some of the causes of what we call the work stress or stress at the workplace. Unhappy in the job. One question that we need to ask ourselves is, are you happy doing what you're doing? If you're teachers, the first question you need to ask yourself is, are you happy being a teacher? This is the first question. If you're a practicing engineer, you should ask the question, are you happy being an engineer? So, unhappy in the job means extremely bad for your stress. So, number one, you have to be happy in the job that you're working. Number two, you have to draw a line as to your workload. Quite obviously, your bosses, your place of work would load you with work. But you should decide what should be an optimum level of work I should do so that I remain happy and I remain efficient and I have sufficient time to devote to my life, which is my personal life and my family life. So you have to actually be thinking about this. Heavy workload, is something that you should guard against, because if you do heavy workload, you are likely to come under stress. Therefore, I want all of you to remember this. You should be able to draw a line and decide what should be your workload. Not be influenced by your boss, who would definitely load you with work, or your place of work, or your company. Right? Avoid that. You have to decide for you. Now, similarly, heavy responsibilities. Workload is a quantity of work you do, which would sometimes be more physical. But when you're loaded with responsibility, it can become very mental also. So you have to again decide on what is the level of responsibility I can accept, which would help me perform well, at the same time will not have any negative impact on my mind. So otherwise, this can become a stressor at the workplace. Long hours of work, I don't need to expand on that. There again, you have to draw a line as to what would be my efficient time of work. How long should I work so that I am efficient and I'm happy doing what I'm doing? So long hours of work is something that should be avoided. And this is something I get to hear now with people working from home. A lot of bosses are loading them with a lot of work, and therefore they have long hours of work sitting at home itself, and which is not a very desirable thing. So long working hours should be, otherwise it can become a cause of stress. Indifferent management, which you would come across all the time, that can be a tremendous cause of stress at the workplace. I always tell my students that the most important person in your professional life is your boss. He can make your career, or you can mar or destroy your career. So much would depend on how you handle your boss and your superiors. And if they are indifferent, quite obviously it would become a cause of stress for you. Unduly high expectation from superiors, this is always there. They would want you, just like they load you with work, they would expect that you fulfill all the work and fulfill everything that they give you. And as a result of which, you would go into stress and breakdown. Therefore, again, it is for you to decide what would be ideally what I should achieve in my work. It should not be defined by what your superiors or your boss expects of you. Right? It should be what should be ideally your level. You should be able to draw a line. No say in decision making. If you are working all the time and taking orders all the time, and somebody is shouting orders at you, making you work, quite obviously you won't enjoy such a work. You would want that you have a part to play in the decision relating to your work. So you would expect some kind of say in your decision making. If that is not coming, you would be very distressed, and that would become a cause for stress in your workplace. Because otherwise, if you're part of decision making, you would know that this was decided by me also, then you would be able to work about it happily and work to complete it. So if you don't have a role in decision making, that can become a cause of stress.
Unhappy in the job, heavy workload, heavy responsibility, long hours of work, indifferent management, unduly high expectation from superior. Oh. ನಾಕೆ ಬಿಸ್ಕೆಟ್ ಇದೆ.
Sorry, would you please stop that conversation?
ಕಾಫಿ ಬಹಳ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಾವು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬ್ರೂ ಕಾಫಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ. ದೂರೇ ಕೊಡದ ಬ್ರೂ ಕಾಫಿ.
Would you please switch off that microphone, please?
Yes, sir, I did, sir.
All
Please
right,
continue.
then. All right. And finally, the threat of job loss is always there. But if you're happy and you're performing well, then quite obviously that threat will not be there. But if there is the threat of job loss, that can become a cause of stress. So I just identified that as all of you are working, these are some of the stressors at the workplace. By stressors, I repeat what I said earlier. Stressors are those things that cause stress. So some of the things that cause stress at the workplace is what I identified here, ending with the threat of even job loss, right? All right, moving on about the workplace. Dangerous conditions of work is another stressor, particularly people working in factories and unsafe places. This can become a matter of great stress. For example, people working in some chemical factories, petroleum factories, they are forever under stress of any kind of accident, which can be a threat to their life also. And so they need to be properly educated and made aware that all possible precautions have been taken regarding their safety. Otherwise, they would forever be under stress. For example, somebody working in a nuclear plant. We know that a nuclear plant can be extremely dangerous because harmful radiations can be there. But it's the responsibility of the management and the top brass to educate and convince everybody in the plant that all possible precautions have been taken to ensure their safety so that they can be free of stress. Otherwise, if you're working in a condition that is dangerous, that can itself become a cause of stress, right? So some of the points here. Now, first of all, the previous slide, I talked about the workplace in general. Now I want to focus on, because most of you are teachers, I want to focus on teachers, the teaching profession, and possible stress. So teachers and stress. And I would know this well because, as I said in the beginning itself, I'm a teacher who's been in this profession for nearly 40 years. So I've experienced all kinds of things, including stress on many occasions, right? So together, let us take a look at the teaching profession and stress. Very surprisingly, I'm sure most of you would be surprised. Studies conducted in India and studies conducted abroad, even in the most developed country, the United States, have shown that the teaching profession is one of the most stressful professions. Most of the time here, we the teachers are told by others, you have a cushy time, you have a wonderful time, you have nothing to do, you have a job which has no stress. But the fact remains that this is one of the most stressful professions. And studies have shown this. I'm not talking about just here in India. It is a global phenomenon, right? I remember reading about a particular study that was conducted in the United States, where it was shown that 1 out of 5 teachers suffer from stress. Now, this is an extremely disturbing thing for us teachers. And therefore, it is time for us to take a look at our lives and see, are we under stress? What are the stresses we have in our life or stresses we have at our place of work, in our classroom, in our relationship with our students and our parents? You know, it is time we took a look at that, right? Now, those of you in the teaching profession should take note of this fact. The thing that I mentioned earlier, that it is one of the most stressful professions, and studies, research has shown that 1 out of 5, this is a study in the United States, 1 out of 5 teachers suffer from stress, right? Now imagine 20% of the teachers suffer from stress. Right from the beginning. Therefore, young teachers who are there listening to me, teachers who've entered the teaching profession, should be aware of this, that this can be a stressful profession, and you should take right from the beginning, take steps to manage stress, right? And therefore, that's extremely important. So the point I'm trying to make here is the workplace is an area of stress, and for teachers, it's an extremely stressful profession. Although the impression given out is that it is an easy profession, you don't need to do anything, etc. Whereas if you're a serious teacher, it can be a stressful profession, need not be, if we manage our stress well. That's the point I'm trying to make. Let us look at some of the stressors in the teaching profession, or causes of stress for teachers. I'm talking about not only teachers in institutions of higher education, I'm talking about teachers in general, including teachers in schools and colleges. There can be immense challenge from the job. A teacher's job is not just teaching in the class. There is so much of demand on a teacher's time before he enters the class and after he leaves the class. So there is a lot of demand on the teaching profession as far as time is concerned, as far as knowledge and awareness is concerned, as far as preparation is concerned. So it is a challenging job. And this challenge, demand on the teacher as far as time and other challenges are concerned, can become a matter of stress. So job demands and the challenges. Long working hours, of course, on paper, we have some working hours, this many periods or this many hours of work, right? That is there. But when we add the time for preparation of our lectures and the time required for taking up feedback and evaluating the feedback and evaluating our papers, etc., it can be long working hours. So very often, outsiders who are not familiar with teaching would say, all right, you have 40 minutes or a 1 hour class, and you have 2 or 3 classes per day. So you work for at the most 2-3 hours a day, whereas we work for 8 hours a day. But they conveniently forget that if you want to lecture for 1 hour in your class, then you need at least 2 to 3 hours of preparation. And then if you want to evaluate the feedback and evaluate the answer sheets, etc., additional hours. All that put together, it can actually end up being long hours of work. So a teacher's hours of work is not limited to just his time in the class. There is so much of time used before for preparation and afterwards for evaluation and for feedback and things like that. That needs to be added. So long working hours can become a stressor. Classroom management can become a very stressful situation. And this is where the young teachers should take careful note. Everything you do in the class is going to determine your success as a teacher and your happiness for yourself. If you've been able to deliver a good lecture and you've been able to impact the students, then it gives you a lot of happiness. Otherwise, once you're in the class and you're not able to deliver, then it can become a matter of stress. And it can keep on increasing slowly. So from being just one day, it can become cumulatively number of days. and then you become an unhappy teacher. Your students become unhappy about you, right? And as a result, you get into a situation of stress. So classroom management, how to make your classroom interesting, how your students should be keen to come to your class, right? And how you can deliver in the class. These things should become important for you. And therefore, classroom management, if it is not properly done, it can become a stressor, it can become a cause of stress. Language lacuna, particularly, now large number of teachers have problems communicating in the English language. So when it comes to institutions of higher education, this becomes a very serious problem. And because of lacuna means shortcoming. So because of the shortcoming, unable to speak well, their classroom doesn't become interesting. And therefore it creates issues and then tension and stress. So language is an important tool for a teacher. And how effectively he can use the language would determine his success as a teacher. And therefore, I want all of you to take careful look at this. You cannot be a good teacher without being able to handle your class and your language well. Less pay is always a complaint that we have. Some of us were in institutions of higher education. Some of us were in national level institutes may be happy with the, the, the salary that we get. But this does not have to be the same everywhere. There are a large number of schools and colleges where the teachers get very less pay, and that can become a matter of great stress. Therefore, your salary, your pay can actually become a matter of stress. Workplace fatigue and burnout due to all the reasons we talked about earlier. That is demand on your time as a teacher, demand on various activities that you do in addition to classroom teaching as a teacher, your classroom management, if it is not good, your language, if it is not good, all this can add to tension and stress in your life, and which could lead to workplace fatigue, tiredness you feel. You're not enthusiastic about going into your classroom. You're not enthusiastic about going into your school or college. And ultimately, it leads to what you say workplace fatigue and leads to burnout, and which can lead to serious mental and physical problems. So don't let fatigue, job fatigue come into you. Be energetic, be happy about what you're doing. And that can happen only if you're a good and effective teacher. So youngsters who are listening to me, right from the beginning as you enter the profession, ensure that you do everything possible to make yourself into an effective and efficient teacher so that you're happy and your students are happy. Working conditions can become a matter of stress for a lot of teachers because not all schools and colleges are well equipped regarding classrooms and regarding a lot of other things. So if working conditions are not good, that can become a stressor. You go into a classroom and if it is not well lit or if it is not properly furnished, all that can become a matter of stress for you. If your board is not good, if you're using audiovisual aids, if they are not running well, that comes. So working conditions are extremely important. If they're not good, it can become a matter of stress for the teacher. And like any other job, a threat of job loss always there, particularly if you're not a regular permanent teacher in a good institution. You're always under threat of being thrown out or losing your job, and that can become a stressor. So some of the stresses that we teachers encounter, apart from other situations of job, is what I listed in this. Now I come to specifically something that all of us. So how do we overcome this? Now we are faced with many challenges as teachers. So what do we do this? Right from the beginning, it's extremely important that you made a choice deliberately and consciously to become a teacher. If you made a choice, that is, as I always tell my young fellow teachers, that are you a teacher by accident or by choice? Even if you're a teacher by accident, you should make a deliberate choice to be a good teacher. So right from the beginning, you need to work towards becoming an effective and efficient teacher. It is then that you derive happiness from your work. It is then that you keep your work free of stress. It is then that you make your students and others around you happy. So it's extremely important, as we saw. Now I'm going to, therefore, extremely important for us to be happy about the teaching job and proud about being a teacher. This is something that I normally tell the teachers. If you want to be happy and effective as a teacher, first and foremost, you should be a proud teacher. So one question I always ask my youngsters is, are you proud being a teacher? Somebody who visited India from outside told us that the main problem with teachers in India, is that teachers are not proud of their profession. Who's this who mentioned this to us? All of us, I'm sure, would recognize this face. One of the most recognized faces in the world, for the simple reason he is one of the richest men in the world. When I visited India last time, all of you know Bill Gates. He's not running Microsoft, which he founded. He's the founder chairman of Microsoft. These days, he's not running Microsoft. He's using his wealth, his money, to help his fellow human beings overcome problems. So he's using his Gates Foundation to help poor and developing countries around the world overcome human problems. So he visits India frequently these days. When he was the chairman of Microsoft and the CEO of Microsoft, he hardly had the time to visit India. But now he visits India because the Gates Foundation is funding a number of projects in India would help us overcome some of our problems. Like he's funding India for overcoming health problems. He's funding India for improving our education system. He's funding India in the area of agriculture because food is an important part for him. Therefore, all these things he's doing, and he's funding India for all that. So he frequently visits India. Last time when he came to India, in an interview, he said, when he was asked, you're supporting India's education system or you're helping India improve its education system, he was asked, are you happy with what's happening? And then he said, I'm disappointed. He was asked, why are you disappointed? He said, teachers are not proud of their profession. This is what he said. He said, I find that the Indian teachers are not proud of their profession. If you're proud of the profession, then you would be an effective teacher. And if you're an effective teacher, you would be a happy teacher. And therefore, Bill Gates felt that our education system, the most important component of our education system, is the teacher. And if the teacher is not happy and proud and efficient, then the system cannot work. So he said, I'm very disappointed that the Indian teachers are not proud of their profession. Now, the question I want to ask ourselves is, why is that we are not proud of our profession? There are enough reasons for us to be proud of the teaching profession. So those of us who are part of this profession can obviously be extremely proud of this profession for a number of reasons. Let us try and find out some of those reasons, not all. So I've put this question mark is, why should we be proud? Why can we celebrate the teacher in India? The first point is, we live in a country, we live in a society that has traditionally respected the teacher. All of us understand this. In India, the guru was an extremely respected person in ancient times. The Gurukul, that is the school at that time, was an extremely efficient system of teaching and learning. Now, we have a tradition, therefore, of the guru, the teacher being respected. So we live in a country where the teacher is respected, and therefore we should be proud of being a teacher in India. We not only impart knowledge and skills to our students, we developed their personality. This is another important thing. We should not limit ourselves or our job as giving some piece of knowledge to our students and some skill to our students. We go beyond that. What is happening in schools and colleges goes beyond gathering or giving knowledge. It impacts the life of the student. It shapes his personality. So from that point of view, we should be extremely proud of what we are doing, because through our teaching, we are shaping the personality of our students, not just giving them knowledge and skills. And when we shape the personality of our students, make them good and efficient professionals, what we are doing is not only helping an individual or a family, we are actually helping our society and ultimately our country. So by shaping a student, you are contributing to the growth and development of your society, growth and development of your country. Therefore, this is something we can all be extremely proud of. Another reason why we should all be proud of being teachers is we are role models to our students. What we say by role model is, our students are carefully observing us, every action, every behavior of ours, everything that we say is closely observed and emulated, right? They copy us teachers, the way we behave, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we speak, all that is very carefully observed and copied. So we actually become role models for our students, something that we should all be very proud of, right? Another reason why we should be proud of it. And another reason, good reason why we should all be very proud of is we are in extremely esteemed company. We have some great Indians who've been teachers. And therefore, from that point of view also, we should be extremely proud of being teachers. So I just listed down certain reasons why we can all be very proud of being teachers. And therefore, we should shape ourselves in such a way that our pride is exhibited. So somebody like Bill Gates, who comes to India, sees our pride in our profession, right? And he should not be able to say that Indian teachers are not proud of their profession. So I want all of you, most of your youngsters, to realize that you should love your profession to the extent of being proud of your profession. And these are some very good reasons why we can all be proud of being teachers. The last point I made was we are in extremely esteemed company. We are in esteemed company when we talk about the teaching profession. That is to say, we've had some great teachers as Indians. First of all, I'm putting up an image. Image is that of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. I'm sure all of you recognize him because he was the first Vice President of India and the second President of India. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. More than being the President and the Vice President, he was an extremely renowned teacher, extremely efficient teacher. And when he became the president, some people went to him and asked him how he wanted his birthday, September 5th, to be celebrated. And he said, if possible, please celebrate it as Teachers' Day. Imagine the President of India, who was himself a teacher, felt that the best way to celebrate his birthday, September 5th, is to call it the Teachers' Day. That is how high he considered the teaching profession. So when we say that we are also teachers, we could very proudly say we are teachers and in the same profession as Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, the most renowned teacher, apart from being the President of India. And he respected teaching so much that he wanted his birthday to be observed as Teachers' Day. Another great Indian we could all find is Dr. Kalam, APJ Abdul Kalam, another President of India, who was also known for a number of other things. He was a scientist. He was called the Missile Man of India. He was the chief of DRDO. He was scientific advisor to the government of India and did a lot of things in space. And he was as a part of a team of scientists who exploded the first atom device in India, the nuclear device in India. So he is a man with multifarious interests. And he was also a teacher. As teacher, Dr. Kalam was considered one of the best teachers. In fact, before he became the president, he was a teacher. And after he completed his term as a president for 5 years, he went back to teaching. Towards the end of his life, one of his staff members asked him that you're known by so many names. You're called the Missile Man of India. You're called the scientific advisor. You were the chairman of DRDO. You were so many things. But what would you like to be remembered for? And he said, I would like to be remembered mostly as a teacher. Imagine. I just took the examples of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan and Dr. Kalam, two presidents, first citizens of India, who were so extremely proud of being teachers, right? And therefore, we have every right to be in the teaching profession and be proud of being teachers. If you go back in history and mythology, there are so many examples of great teachers and great students. I'm sure all of you remember this. Here we are looking at Dronacharya, the teacher, and Arjuna, the student. And in fact, Arjuna is known as Dronacharya's student, and equally well, Dronacharya is known as Arjuna's teacher. So the great marksman and his master. Here we are looking at, on one side, we have Alexander the Great, Sikandar, and his teacher Aristotle. Alexander said, I am what I am because of my teacher. At a very young age, Alexander was under the tutorship of his teacher Aristotle. And Alexander gives credit to all his achievements to his teacher. So we have Alexander, Sikandar, and Aristotle, his teacher. Another person who credits his teacher with everything is Vivekananda and his teacher Paramahamsa. Vivekananda said, my guru was my mentor. And wherever my name is taken and celebrated, I want Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's name also taken and celebrated. So a celebrated teacher for a celebrated student. I don't need to expand on this. Another great student and another equally great teacher. This is Ramakant Achrekar and Sachin Tendulkar, the master blaster and his mentor. So his teacher is remembered almost as equally as the master blaster. And another good example of a great teacher and a great student. This is a picture that was taken soon after PV Sindhu won the silver medal in the last Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. When they returned, they met the Prime Minister, and this is what the Prime Minister said. He is an example of a good teacher. That is Gobichand. Pulela Gobichand, the Prime Minister said, a very good example of a good teacher. So today, whenever PV Sindhu is remembered, her teacher is also remembered. PV Sindhu is now participating in the Tokyo Games, and we hope that she would improve her performance from a silver medal to a gold medal, actually, right? So PV Sindhu and her coach, teacher Gobichand Pulela. This is the last picture of a great teacher and a great achiever and a student, which is just a few days back. We have Mirabai Shanu, who won the silver medal in weightlifting in Tokyo Games. The Tokyo Olympic Games is still going on, and this is the only medal India has won so far. We are expecting more medals, but we have Mirabai Shanu standing in front of the victory podium at Tokyo, carrying the tricolor and carrying the silver medal that she won. And alongside Shanu is her coach and teacher, Vijay Sharma. Right, so as long as Mirabai Shanu is remembered, you can expect her teacher to be remembered. Now, in all this, what I was trying to project is we are in great company because we are a country who respects teachers, and therefore we should all be very proud of the fact that we are in the teaching profession. And once we are proud, we will work towards becoming efficient and effective teachers. And once we do that, we will be happy teachers. And once we are happy teachers, we'll be able to keep our stress away from our teaching. And that is what I wanted to say. I would go into the final few slides. Apart from being in great company, as teachers, we have a great responsibility to fulfill. India today enjoys what we call a demographic advantage, which means in our population, we have a very young population. The average age of India is only 29, when in the US it is 40, and Europe 46, and Japan 47. So we have a young population. And it is our responsibility to convert this population into human resource by educating them, giving them proper training. And that is the responsibility of the teachers. And we as teachers, therefore, are loaded with this great responsibility of converting the young population into human resource and converting this country, which is today a developing country, into a developed country. We call this a demographic advantage. All of you would know this. 54% of India is below the age of 25. And the working population of 15 to 59 is about 64%. All to put together, India has a big demographic advantage, which all of us know. We should be converting this into a demographic dividend, a profit, by converting this population into human resource, useful, productive population. And that is what we, the teachers, are expected to do. So the point that I'm trying to make is this window of advantage is available to us only for 25 years, till about, let us say, roughly till about 2040. So if we don't hurry up, we will miss the bus. We, the teachers, need to be seriously, sincerely involved in training this young population, converting them into human resource so our society and country can develop. We call this a demographic dividend, a profit that comes out of the advantage that we have in our population. We need to equip our youths with employable skills, hence the Skill India campaign. We need to encourage our youth to start up new businesses, therefore the Startup India campaign. So we teachers, number one, we are in great company because we are in a country that is full of great teachers. At the same time, we have great responsibility to our society and our country because we have this great responsibility of converting our young population into useful, productive human resource, and which would lead to the development of our society and the country, right? And therefore, we need to keep that in mind. We have this responsibility as well. Now, I don't need to expand on this. We already talked about how teachers are role models. How do we become role models? By improving our knowledge base, improving our communication skills, improving our social skills, by improving our emotional stability so that we deal with our students and our parents effectively, and also providing leadership in our classroom and in the teaching learning process. So when we do all this, have sufficient knowledge base, good communication, good social skills, so that we can effectively interact with our students and our parents, good emotional stability, and good leadership skills, then we become role models for our students. And that is when we will be able to develop a well-rounded personality. The last quotation is from Albert Einstein, who said, "Knowledge and skills alone cannot lead humanity to a happy, dignified life. A student must acquire a vivid sense of the beautiful and what is morally good. Otherwise, his specialized knowledge of the student would closely resemble a well-trained dog than a harmoniously developed person." Are we developing trained dogs or a harmoniously developed person? If you do that sincerely, then we can be extremely proud of our profession and we can have a stress-free professional life. I just put up the image of an extremely popular person, Deepika Padukone. The point I'm trying to make here is, you would think that she's an actress, an extremely popular, famous actress. But she came forward in 2014 to say that I have an extremely stressful life leading to clinical depression. That is to say, nobody and no profession is free of stress. But we should be able to identify stress and take steps to overcome stress, so we become stress-free. Deepika Padukone came openly and said that she suffered from a stressful life and she took doctor's help, and today she's overcome that problem. And this is something to be kept in mind. One of the first points that when we talk about stress management, we're talking about identifying stress at an early stage and dealing with that as quick as possible so that it does not degenerate into distress and depression and a breakdown. So let us keep that in mind and in perspective. So even in a popular and high profile job like an actor's job, it can be stressful. So when I say that teaching is a stressful life, then there is nothing that we need to feel bad about. Let us identify the stressors, the stressful situations, and overcome. Now, what are the takeaways from our discussion? The points I want you to remember from our discussion. Number one, that stress is very much a part of our life. We cannot have a life without stress. So stress is very much a part of human life. What we need to do is identify good stress, or what we said, eustress, positive stress, and utilize that stress for better performance. Identify negative stress, bad stress, which we call distress, and eliminate them. And do that at the earliest. So human life is stressful, but we have ways of managing stress. So understanding and managing stress is essential for a happy and successful life. So the title of our discussion today was stress management. So it's extremely important to have a happy and successful life to manage stress, to overcome stress. If stress is not managed well, it can lead to distress and depression. We already spoke about it a number of times. Let us be aware of this and deal with it as fast as possible. Teaching profession is highly stressful, so need to be carefully managed. Let us acknowledge the fact it is a stressful profession, but if we manage it well, then we derive immense pleasure from teaching. And we have a very impactful profession, which is important to our society and to our country and to the individual students. And therefore, we need to take stress out of our job, bring in happiness and contentment into our job. If stress is utilized to enhance performance, it is a highly satisfying and rewarding profession. So I say teaching is a highly satisfying and rewarding profession. This is something that is coming from a person who's been with the teaching profession for nearly 40 years. So you can believe what I say. It is a highly satisfying and rewarding profession. If we enhance, improve our performance by taking stress out of our profession. And I would say that this is exactly what all of us teachers should do. Not only teaching, all of the profession, but because today I'm addressing mostly teachers, I thought this is a takeaway thought I can leave with you, that let us think of eliminating and managing stress and eliminating stress so that we enjoy our profession, and it is a highly rewarding and satisfying profession, right? So this is the message I wanted to leave with you. And I want all of you to remember the stress is part of our life, and let us try and manage stress and eliminate it. So I say thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Any audience? Anybody wants to ask question? Anyone? No, sir.
No, all right, that's all right, absolutely fine.
Sir, I want to ask a question.
Yeah,
Hello?
please do. Who is this?
Sir.
Can you name?
Sir, this is Gururaj MH from MIT Mysore, Karnataka.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
Gururaj.
sir,
What's your question?
Thank you, sir. Just I just want some clarification regarding that, sir. Sir, it was really a stress relief session, frankly speaking.
right.
So it required for civil engineers, especially. I mean, sorry, for
right.
faculties.
Yeah.
So my concern is so that I believe that a teacher is a one who consciously teach what he knows or what he knows.
Yeah.
Consciously, we teach what we are.
All
So
right.
is our personal life or personal styles of a teacher will affect the students if it affects, how to overcome those things, sir?
Yeah, exactly. Gurraj, I would say it affects the students 100%, right? Because
Yes, sir.
because your interaction with the students is not just in the classroom, it's outside the classroom also, right? And we discussed right in the beginning itself, your duty is not just sharing knowledge, it is also about developing the personality of the students. And the personality of the student can be better developed by you becoming a role model for the students. By role model, it is not just your knowledge base alone that is important. The way you conduct yourself, your behavior, the way you speak, all those things combined is your personality. And that is what the student is observing. And he observes and he learns from that. So your personality is part of what he is going to emulate or copy. So the kind of person that you are is equally important to what is your knowledge base. So don't limit yourself to just sharing the knowledge. Also help your students to develop the personality, right? And that's therefore extremely important. And therefore you also need to focus on developing your personality so that that reflects in your dealings with your students. Thank you for the question, Guru Raj.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Anyone? Any other? I would like to thank Dr. Philip for taking out time from their busy schedule and enlightening us with the knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. I really enjoyed this lecture, and you have covered all the possible topics which could be covered in this lecture. I have also noticed sometimes stress comes at our workplace or maybe due to personal reasons.
Right.
And you have very well addressed how a teacher could be stressed during a job and how can he come out from his stress.
All right.
I hope we will be able to reduce stress after listening to your lecture.
Right.
We will try to manage ourselves so that stress will be reduced at our workplace, in our mind, so that our work efficiency will improve.
All right.
Once again, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you,
It was a
Vikas.
really wonderful lecture, one of the
Right.
wonderful lectures, as usual.
All right. And thank you, everyone. All right. Thank you for patient listening. And thank you, Vikas, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. क्या करें? Please switch on the cameras for the group photo. I request all the participants. Sir, चलो.